Welcome to Crossdressing Stories. Here, we share personal stories, celebrate self-expression. If you're on your own journey or simply curious, you've found your community. Subscribe and join the conversation.
My life, as I knew it, ended on a Tuesday. It wasn't a dramatic, movie-style ending with explosions or a car crash. It ended quietly, over a dinner of spaghetti and meatballs, with the clinking of forks on ceramic plates and the low hum of the refrigerator. It ended when my mother, Olivia, put down her fork, wiped her mouth with a napkin, and made an announcement that tilted the entire world on its axis. "I have an idea," she said, her eyes sparkling with the kind of manic enthusiasm that usually preceded a new fad diet or a home renovation project we couldn't afford. My dad, Paul, grunted appreciatively, probably thinking she was about to suggest dessert. My 12-year-old sister, Ashley, looked up from her phone, a rare event in itself. My 7-year-old brother, Harry, was busy trying to suck a single strand of spaghetti up his nose. I, Jason, age 15, just kept eating, assuming this had nothing to do with me. I was wrong. So wrong. "I've been reading this fascinating book," Mum continued, her voice gaining momentum. "It's called Balanced Sons Raising Empathetic Men in a Modern World. The author proposes a series of social experiments to help boys understand different perspectives, and I want to try one." Dad finally looked up, a little more alert. "What kind of experiment?" "Liv, please don't tell me we're going vegan again. I still have nightmares about that tofu turkey." "No, nothing like that." "Paul." She smiled, a wide, slightly unnerving smile. "I want to turn Jason and Harry into girls for a day." Silence. The only sound was Harry finally succeeding in snorting the spaghetti noodle, which he then sneezed out in a spectacular, sauce-splattered explosion. The world had not only tilted, it had flipped upside down and was now spinning like a cheap carnival ride. My dad was the first to find his voice. "You want to? What, Olivia? Are you out of your mind? That's not an experiment. That's just weird. The kids will get bullied. Jason's in high school. For God's sake." I felt a hot flush crawl up my neck and spread across my face. I could feel every eye on me. Me, a 15-year-old guy who played on the JV basketball team and spent his weekends trying to master difficult guitar riffs, was now the subject of a proposal to be turned into a girl. The sheer unadulterated humiliation of it was like a physical blow. "Mom? No, absolutely not." I managed to choke out, my voice sounding strangled. Harry, ever the literalist, looked down at his lap with wide, terrified eyes. "Are you going to cut my thingy off?" he whispered, his lower lip trembling. My mom rushed to reassure him. "No, sweetie. Of course not. It's just for fun, like a costume. Like Halloween." But the word that really lit the fuse was fun. Because for my sister, Ashley, this wasn't just fun. It was the second coming. Her eyes, which were usually glazed over with preteen boredom, were now shining like supernovas. "Oh my God, Mom." "Yes," she shrieked, dropping her phone on the table with a clatter. "Can I be their stylist? I can do their hair and makeup. We can pick out outfits. It'll be like having 2 new sisters to play with. Can we please?" The battle lines were drawn. It was me and Dad, the bastions of sanity, against Mom and Ashley, the architects of my impending social doom. Harry was a neutral. Spaghetti covered Switzerland, concerned only with the structural integrity of his own anatomy. The argument that followed was both excruciating and absurd. Dad argued about psychological damage and public ridicule. Mom countered with buzzwords from her book Empathy, perspective shifting, breaking down toxic masculinity. She insisted it would be a controlled environment, just for one day, to see what it felt like. I tried to protest again, but my words were drowned out. Think about it. Jason, she said, turning her full attention to me. Don't you ever wonder what it's like to be treated differently? To experience the world through a completely different lens? I didn't. I really didn't. I wanted to experience the world through the lens of a guy who didn't have to worry about his mom forcing him into a dress. But looking at her determined face, and Ashley's practically vibrating excitement, I felt a sinking feeling. This wasn't a negotiation. It was a declaration. The air in the dining room was thick with tension, a bizarre cocktail of my father's anger, my mother's unwavering resolve, my sister's glee, and my own profound, soul-crushing mortification. My life as Jason was over, and some girl I didn't even know yet, was about to be born from its ashes. My mother, when she got an idea in her head, was less like a gentle stream and more like a high-speed freight train. The 2 weeks following the Spaghetti Summit, as I'd started calling it in my head, were a blur of Amazon boxes, hushed phone calls, and a complete territorial takeover of the small guest room upstairs. Olivia declared that for the experiment to be truly immersive, the preparation had to be thorough. This wasn't just about throwing on a dress. It was about creating a persona. The boxes started arriving daily, each one a fresh little package of horror. I'd see the smiling Amazon logo on the porch, and my stomach would clench. Inside were things I'd only ever seen in store windows or on TV floral print dresses, lacy bras, packs of nylon stockings, and shoes that looked more like instruments of torture than footwear. There were wigs on styrofoam heads, a bewildering array of makeup brushes, and bottles of foundation in various shades of beige. The guest room, which had once been a neutral space filled with old photo albums and a futon nobody used, was systematically transformed. My mom and Ashley worked on it with the feverish energy of reality TV home makeover hosts. They painted the walls a soft, pastel pink. They hung gauzy white curtains that billowed in the slightest breeze. They replaced the old desk with a white vanity table, complete with a large, Hollywood-style mirror bordered with light bulbs. It became, for all intents and purposes, a princess room. It was Ashley's dream come true and my personal nightmare chamber. I tried to avoid it, but it was like a magnetic field of dread. One afternoon, I found myself standing in the doorway, peering in. Ashley was carefully arranging lipsticks in a clear acrylic holder. A large cardboard box sat open on the floor. My eyes locked onto the contents. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, were things that made my heart hammer against my ribs. There were 2 sets of what I could only describe as silicone blobs, flesh-colored and disconcertingly realistic. Beside them were some strange, tight-looking undergarments. Later, I'd learned the clinical terms, breast forms and gaffs. At that moment, they were just terrifying, alien objects that symbolized the complete demolition of my identity. My reaction was a confusing jumble of fear and something else. A flicker of something I couldn't name. A strange, unwelcome curiosity. My mind was screaming, "This is insane, this is humiliating," but a tiny, treacherous part of me looked at a shimmering blue dress hanging on the back of the door and wondered what the fabric felt like. I immediately squashed the thought, disgusted with myself. Harry, on the other hand, had no such internal conflict. His initial fear had been replaced by pure, unadulterated excitement. Mum had bought him a sparkly, light blue dress that was a dead ringer for what the princess in that animated movie wore. He'd found it one afternoon and let out a squeal of delight. "It's an Elsa dress," he yelled, holding it up to his small frame and twirling around. "Can I try it on now, please?" Mum convinced him to wait for the official girl day, but the damage was done. He was completely on board. He'd even started asking Mum to call him Chloe, a name they had picked out for his female persona. So, the emotional landscape of our house shifted. I was a storm cloud of anxiety, drifting through the halls and trying to become invisible. Harry was a ray of sunshine, chattering endlessly about Princess Chloe. Ashley was a whirlwind of creative energy, planning outfits and watching makeup tutorials on YouTube. And my mum was the serene, unwavering eye of the hurricane, calmly orchestrating the whole bizarre affair. My dad was the lone holdout. He'd grown quiet and sullen. He'd walk past the princess room, shake his head, and mutter things under his breath. He and my mum had a few more arguments, usually late at night when they thought we were asleep. I'd lie in bed and hear their muffled voices from downstairs. "You're going too far with this, Liv," I heard him say one night. "It's about expanding their minds. Paul, it's harmless." Harmless Jason is 15. He's already awkward and insecure. You're handing his bullies ammunition on a silver platter. Or, she'd reply, her voice firm, "I'm giving him the strength to be resilient, to understand that identity is fluid and clothes don't define you." I wished I had her confidence. Lying in the dark, my hands clenched into fists, I didn't feel like I was getting stronger. I felt like I was being methodically disassembled, piece by piece, with each new Amazon delivery. The Jason I knew was being packed away, and I was terrified of who or what was going to take his place. The day arrived. A Saturday. It dawned bright and sunny. A beautiful day for a public execution. My execution. I woke up with a knot of dread in my stomach so tight it felt like I'd swallowed a baseball. After a tense, mostly silent breakfast, Mom clapped her hands together. "All right, time for the transformations." Ashley grabbed Harry's hand. "Come on, Chloe, let's go get you dressed." Harry giggled and ran upstairs with her, completely swept up in the fantasy. Mom looked at me. Her expression was kind, but unyielding. "Your turn." "Jason." I trudged up the stairs behind her, my feet feeling like they were made of lead. The princess room was even more intimidating in the full light of day. On the vanity, makeup was laid out like surgical tools. On a dress form in the corner, my designated outfit was displayed. It was a simple, navy blue A-line dress with a white collar, modest, tasteful, and utterly alien. "Okay," Mum said, closing the door. Ashley was in the adjoining bathroom with Harry. "First things first, you need to undress." My blood ran cold. "In front of you." "Jason, I'm your mother. I changed your diapers. There's nothing I haven't seen. We need a clean canvas." Reluctantly, I pulled off my t-shirt and jeans, standing there in my boxers. The feeling of shame was so intense it was almost a physical heat on my skin. I avoided looking in the big mirror, focusing on a spot on the pink wall instead. Mom handed me the first piece of the puzzle. The gaff. It was a tight, reinforced piece of fabric, like a cross between underwear and a compression bandage. "This just helps create a smoother silhouette," she explained delicately. Putting it on was a struggle. It was incredibly tight, designed to flatten and hold everything in place. The sensation was bizarre. It was a feeling of compression, of erasure. It felt like the most fundamental, biological part of my male identity had been tucked away and hidden, neutralized. I glanced in the mirror, and the sight was jarring. My hips and groin area were unnervingly smooth, featureless. It was the first real shock. The first moment I truly didn't recognize the body I was in. Next came the breast forms. Mom showed me how to slip the silicone cutlets into the pockets of a soft, simple training bra. They felt cool and slightly heavy in my hands, with a strange, gelatinous texture. She helped me put the bra on and adjust the straps. The weight on my chest was immediate and undeniable. It changed my posture, pulling my shoulders forward slightly. I instinctively tried to stand up straighter to compensate. The forms settled against my skin, warming to my body temperature. I risked another look in the mirror. And there it was, a feminine curve, a soft, rounded shape that had never been there before. It was just silicone and fabric. But the illusion was powerful. It was so strange, so profoundly wrong. And yet, my brain couldn't help but process the visual information. The person in the mirror had the beginnings of a female figure. "Okay," Mom said gently. "The dress." She lifted the navy blue dress off the form. I held my arms up woodenly as she slipped it over my head. The fabric was a soft, flowy polyester blend. It slid over the silicone forms, down my torso, and flared out around my legs. The sensation of the soft material brushing against my skin, so different from the rough denim of my jeans, was another small shock to the system. It felt delicate. Ashley came back in, her eyes wide. "Whoa! Okay, my turn." She sat me down in the chair in front of the vanity. For the next 20 minutes, she became a tiny, focused professional. She clipped a long, dark brown wig onto my head, the synthetic hair tickling my neck and shoulders. The sheer volume of it felt strange, a constant presence at the edge of my vision. Then came the makeup, the cool swipe of foundation, the tickle of a brush dusting blush onto my cheeks, the awkwardness of holding my eye still as she applied a light coat of mascara. Finally, a slick of clear, shiny lip gloss. "Okay," Ashley breathed, spinning my chair around to face the mirror. "Look." I lifted my head and looked, and my breath caught in my throat. It wasn't me. Staring back at me was a stranger, a girl with my brown eyes. Yes, but they looked different, larger and softer under the mascara. Her face was smoother, her cheeks had a healthy pink glow, her lips were shiny. The long brown hair framed her face, hiding my familiar jawline. The dress created a shape that was feminine, and the hint of a chest sealed the deal. It wasn't a boy in a dress, it was a girl, a rather plain, nervous-looking girl, but a girl nonetheless. Just then, Harry, now fully transformed into Chloe, burst into the room. He was a vision of 7-year-old joy in his sparkly blue dress and a messy blonde wig styled into a single braid. He did a twirl, the skirt flaring out around him. "Look, I'm a princess," he shrieked with laughter. He looked at me, his head cocked to the side. "You look pretty," he said, with the simple, brutal honesty of a child. Ashley beamed. "We need a name for you." "Mom, what did you pick?" "Evelyn," my mom said softly, watching my reaction in the mirror. I always liked the name Evelyn. Evelyn. I stared at the girl in the mirror. Evelyn. I felt a dizzying wave of conflicting emotions. I was humiliated. I was ashamed. I was a freak in my own home. But deep down, buried under all of that, was a tiny, terrifying spark of something else. A whisper that said, You don't look bad. There was a sliver of pride in the sheer effectiveness of the disguise. Evelyn. The name echoed in my head as I stared at her. This stranger wearing my face. And for the first time, I felt a strange, unnerving connection to her. "Okay, girls," my mum announced, grabbing her purse. "Let's go run some errands." My heart, which had been doing a frantic tap dance all morning, promptly tried to exit my body via my throat. "Go, go, we're outside." "Of course," she said brightly. "We'll just go to the mall, get some ice cream, maybe look in a few shops. The whole point of the experiment is the social part. Remember?" Chloe, aka Harry, clapped his hands. "Ice cream, can I get strawberry?" He was already at the front door, his little black patent leather shoes tapping impatiently on the hardwood floor. I, on the other hand, felt rooted to the spot. Going outside meant people, strangers, maybe even people I knew. The thought sent a jolt of pure panic through me. Every part of this costume, this persona, felt fragile and precarious. The wig felt like it was about to slide off. The dress felt too short, too conspicuous, and the shoes Mom had given me a pair of simple, flat navy blue ballet flats felt flimsy and utterly foreign on my feet. Walking in them was a conscious effort. I had to take smaller steps, my gait suddenly feeling awkward and stilted. The drive to the mall was agonizing. I sat in the back, staring out the window, trying to shrink into the seat. I was acutely aware of everything. The way the seatbelt cut across my fake chest, the way the synthetic hair of the wig brushed against my cheek when I turned my head, the faint, sweet smell of Ashley's lip gloss. Chloe chattered non-stop from his booster seat, pointing out dogs and trucks and asking if princesses had to eat their vegetables. He was living his best life. I was living an anxiety dream. Walking from the car into the mall entrance was one of the longest journeys of my life. The breeze caught the hem of my dress, making it flutter around my legs. It was a sensation I'd never experienced, a feeling of lightness and exposure. My legs, covered only by a thin pair of sheer pantyhose, felt naked. I was used to the protective armor of denim. This felt vulnerable. Inside, the cacophony of the mall, the music, the chatter, the rolling of store gates was overwhelming. I kept my head down, my eyes fixed on the polished floor, convinced that every single person was staring at me, that they could see through the disguise, that a giant neon sign was flashing above my head that said, "Boy in a dress." Chloe, of course, was the opposite. He walked with a proud little swagger, his dress swishing. He smiled and waved at random strangers, who mostly smiled back at the cute little girl in the princess costume. Mom led us to the ice cream shop in the food court. "My treat," she said. Chloe got his strawberry. Ashley got mint chocolate chip. Mum got vanilla. "What about you?" Evelyn, she asked. The name, used in public, made me jump. Chocolate," I mumbled, my voice coming out as a squeak. I cleared my throat and tried again, aiming for a higher pitch. "Chocolate. Please." It sounded fake and ridiculous to my own ears, but the guy behind the counter didn't even blink. He just handed me the cone. We sat at a small table. I was so tense I could barely taste the ice cream. I watched people walk by. My entire body coiled like a spring, ready to bolt. A group of guys my age walked past, laughing and shoving each other. I instinctively slouched, trying to hide behind my hair, praying they wouldn't look in my direction. They didn't. To them, I was just another girl sitting with her family. I was invisible, and that was both a massive relief and strangely unsettling. After ice cream, Mom steered us towards a department store. "Ashley needs some new jeans," she announced. This was a new level of hell. A clothing store. Specifically, the women's section. Racks and racks of dresses, blouses, and skirts surrounded us. A saleswoman with a kind face and a name tag that read Brenda approached us. "Finding everything okay?" she asked, her eyes scanning our group. Her gaze rested on me for a moment. I braced for impact. For the inevitable question. The smirk. The realization. Instead, she smiled warmly. "Well, you are just as cute as a button," she said to Chloe. Then she looked at me. "And you are a very pretty young lady. That color is lovely with your eyes." My brain short-circuited. My face went from pale to crimson in a nanosecond. I think I mumbled something that sounded like thunks, but I'm not sure. My heart wasn't just tapping anymore. It was playing a full-on drum solo. A pretty young lady. No one had ever called me pretty before. I'd been called athletic, smart, quiet, even handsome once by my grandmother. But pretty, that was a word from a different universe. And she'd said it so casually, so genuinely. She saw Evelyn. She didn't see Jason. For the first time that day, a feeling other than terror wormed its way through my anxiety. It was a strange, warm, fluttering sensation in my chest. It was validation. The disguise had worked. Not only had it worked, but it had earned me a compliment. As we walked away, I felt different. I was still nervous, but the raw panic had subsided, replaced by a hyper-awareness of my new role. I noticed how men would hold doors open for my mum and me. I noticed how other women would give me small, almost imperceptible smiles of acknowledgement. The world treated Evelyn differently than it treated Jason. People were gentler, softer, but I also felt a subtle sense of being less solid, less taken seriously. It was a complex flood of new information that I couldn't begin to process. For now, all I could focus on was the echo of Brenda's words, a very pretty young lady. The day eventually ended. We got home. The sun was setting. And the magical, terrifying spell of Girl Day was finally broken. "Okay, time to de-princess," Mom announced. The process of taking off the costume was as ritualistic as putting it on. First, the wig. My head felt strangely light and cool as the mass of synthetic hair was lifted off. Then, in the privacy of the princess room, I unzipped the dress. The soft fabric slid off my shoulders, and I was back in the bra and gaff. I unhooked the bra, and the weight on my chest vanished. The silicone forms felt cool and inert again as I placed them back on the vanity. The last to go was the gaff. Peeling off the tight, constricting fabric felt like a release, a restoration. My body was my own again. I went into my own bathroom and scrubbed my face with soap and water until every trace of makeup was gone. The mascara came off in black smudges under my eyes, making me look like a raccoon. Finally, I looked at myself in my own mirror, under the harsh, fluorescent light. There was Jason, messy brown hair, a faint shadow of adolescent stubble on my chin, my familiar bony shoulders and chest. It was me, but seeing my reflection felt wrong, incomplete. A profound and unexpected sense of loss washed over me. It was a hollow, empty feeling in the pit of my stomach. I hadn't realized it, but I had gotten used to Evelyn over the course of the day. I'd gotten used to the weight on my chest, the swing of the dress, the feel of long hair on my neck. I'd started to inhabit her, to move as she would, to speak in a softer tone. Now, she was gone, packed away in a box. And Jason was back. And Jason, I realized with a jolt, felt boring, plain. I leaned closer to the mirror, comparing the face I saw now to the memory of the girl from a few hours ago. Evelyn's face was softer, her eyes brighter. Her features seemed more delicate under the careful application of makeup and the flattering frame of the wig. Jason's face just looked tired and angular. I hated myself for thinking it. I hated that a part of me missed her. One part of my brain was screaming with relief that the ordeal was over, that I had survived the humiliation. But another, quieter part, felt a pang of regret. It was the part that remembered the fluttery feeling when the saleswoman called me pretty, the part that enjoyed, on some deep, subconscious level, the simple, aesthetic pleasure of looking nice. I was so lost in my thoughts that I didn't hear Ashley come up behind me until she spoke, her voice making me jump. "You're back," she said, peering at my reflection in the mirror beside her own. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that hit me like a punch to the gut. It was said with the casual, thoughtless cruelty that only a younger sibling can muster. "You know," she said, tilting her head, "I think I like Evelyn more than I like Jason." She skipped away before I could even react, leaving me alone with my reflection. Her words hung in the air, echoing in the sudden silence. I stared at my own face in the mirror, but all I could see was the ghost of the pretty girl who had been there just an hour before, and for the first time in my life, I truly, deeply wondered who I was supposed to be. The comment should have made me angry. It should have felt like an insult, but to my absolute horror, a small, treacherous part of me felt a bizarre thrill of pleasure. Someone preferred Evelyn. And maybe, just maybe, I did too. One day, as my mum had promised, turned into a recurring event. She saw the first girl day as a rousing success. Harry was delighted. Ashley was in her element. And I hadn't spontaneously combusted from shame, which she took as a win. And so, girl days became a regular fixture, usually happening every other Saturday. At first, I fought it, I argued, I sulked, I tried to find excuses, but my protests grew weaker each time. A strange sort of resignation set in, which slowly morphed into a quiet, secret anticipation. The transformation process became less of an ordeal and more of a familiar ritual. I learned the routine, the tight embrace of the gaff, the settling weight of the breast forms, the soft whisper of a dress sliding over my head. Ashley, my dedicated stylist, taught me the finer points. She showed me how to apply my own makeup, not just the light touch she'd started with, but how to use eyeliner to make my eyes look bigger, how to contour ever so slightly to soften my jawline. We watched tutorials together, a bizarre bonding experience that would have been unthinkable just a month prior. I became surprisingly good at it. My hands, used to the precise fingerings of a guitar fretboard, proved to be steady with a mascara wand. I also learned how to move. In the privacy of the princess room, I'd practice walking in low heels Ashley had picked out for me. I learned to take smaller steps, to let my hips sway just a little, to avoid the clumsy, space-consuming stomp of my male gait. I learned to sit with my knees together, to gesture with my hands more delicately, to push my hair back from my face in a way that felt natural and feminine. Slowly, terrifyingly, Evelyn started to feel less like a costume and more like an alternate skin. When I was Jason, I felt a constant, low-level pressure. The pressure to be tough, to not show too much emotion, to fit in with the other guys on the basketball team who talked about girls and cars and video games. I had to perform a certain kind of masculinity, and it was often exhausting. But when I was Evelyn, that pressure vanished. No one expected Evelyn to be tough. They expected her to be quiet, polite, and pleasant, and in a weird way, that was freeing. I could just be. I could be softer. I could be more observant. I could relax in a way that Jason never could. Harry, meanwhile, had fully embraced his alter ego. He answered to Chloe even on non-girl days. He asked Mom if he could wear his princess dress to kindergarten. She gently explained that it might be confusing for the other kids, but she bought him some brightly colored t-shirts and shorts from the girls' section, which seemed to satisfy him. He was just a kid having fun, unburdened by the social baggage I was carrying. For him, it was simple. Some days he felt like Harry, and some days he felt like Chloe. My dad, Paul, was the storm cloud on the horizon of our strange new normal. His disapproval grew with each passing girl day. He saw my increasing proficiency with makeup not as a skill, but as a symptom. He saw Chloe's love for dresses not as childhood innocence, but as a sign that my mom's experiment was spiraling out of control. "This has to stop. Liv," I'd hear him say. "You're messing with their heads. This isn't normal." "What's normal?" Paul, she'd shoot back. "A world where boys are taught to bottle up their feelings and mock anything they see as feminine. I'm teaching them to be whole people." Their arguments became a constant, low hum of anxiety in the house. I felt like I was the epicenter of a family-sized earthquake. My dad would look at me as Evelyn with a mixture of pity and confusion, as if I were a stranger who had invaded his home. That look always stung. A painful reminder that while I was starting to feel comfortable as Evelyn, I was also creating a rift in my family. The more Evelyn came to life, the more the foundation of our old life seemed to crack. The real test, the one I'd been dreading, was interacting with my own world while dressed as Evelyn. It happened on a crisp autumn Saturday at the local ice skating rink. Mom had decided it would be a fun, girly activity. Chloe was a natural on the ice, zipping around in a little pink skating skirt, her blonde braid flying behind her. I was less graceful. I wobbled precariously in my rented white skates, my knit dress and leggings offering little protection against the cold. I was clinging to the barrier for dear life when I saw him. Michael, a loud-mouthed kid from my school. My blood turned to ice, a cold far deeper than the rinks. He was with a group of friends, and they were pointing and laughing at something. At Chloe. "Hey, look at that kid!" Michael yelled, loud enough for half the rink to hear. "Is that a boy or a girl?" "It's a boy in a dress." "What a freak!" My first instinct, the Jason instinct, was to skate over there and punch him in the face. But I was Evelyn. Evelyn didn't punch people. I was frozen, unsure of what to do. But Chloe didn't need my help. She skated right up to the barrier where Michael was standing, her small face set with a look of pure, 7-year-old indignation. "It's rude to point," she said, her voice clear and high. Michael just laughed. "What are you going to do about it?" Princess cry. Chloe didn't cry. She put her hands on her hips. "No. But my mom told my other mom." "Who is your mom's best friend?" "That you still wet the bed sometimes." "Should I tell everyone that?" Michael's face went from smug to horrified in a split second. He turned beet red, mumbled something to his friends. and they all scurried away. Chloe sniffed dismissively, did a wobbly pirouette, and skated off as if nothing had happened. I stared after her in awe. She hadn't used her fists. She'd used information. It was brilliant. My own social trial came a few minutes later, as I was making a slow, clumsy lap around the rink. I heard a voice call out, "Evelyn, hi." I turned, my heart leaping into my throat. It was Jane, from my history class, the girl I had a massive, unspoken, and utterly hopeless crush on. She was a vision in a red winter coat, her cheeks flushed from the cold. She was with a group of her friends, all girls. "Oh, hi, Jane," I managed, my voice sounding breathy. "I didn't know you skated," she said, gliding gracefully to a stop beside me. "We were just about to go get some hot chocolate. You should come with us." My brain was a dial tone. Jane, talking to me, to Evelyn, inviting me to hang out. It was a scenario my Jason self had fantasized about for months. I'm with my mom and my sisters," I said, gesturing vaguely toward my family. "Bring them, the more the merrier," she said with an easy smile. And that's how I found myself sitting at a table with Jane and her friends. Sipping hot chocolate. I was so nervous I could barely speak, but Jane made it easy. She asked me about my fictional school, what music I liked, what I thought of the new superhero movie. She treated me like one of the girls. And I realized something stunning. Jane, who barely gave Jason a second glance in history class, was genuinely interested in Evelyn. She laughed at my jokes. She listened intently when I spoke. At one point, she talked about a frustrating teacher, and I nodded in sympathy. She reached out and touched my arm lightly. "See you get it," she said. The touch was electric. A jolt shot up my arm. My skin tingled where her fingers had been. It was a simple, friendly gesture, but for me, it was everything. My heart did a wild, teenage girl flutter that was completely alien to me. It wasn't the way I felt when I looked at her as Jason, which was a more distant, admiring sort of crush. This was different. This was immediate and overwhelming. She was connecting with me, with this person I was pretending to be. As we were leaving, Jane gave me a quick hug. It was so nice to finally hang out. "Evelyn, we should do it again soon." Walking back to the car, my mind was reeling. The encounter had been both a dream come true and a total nightmare. Jane liked Evelyn. She didn't just tolerate her. She actively liked her. She liked the quiet, gentle girl more than the awkward, silent boy who sat 2 rows behind her in class. The thought was intoxicating and, at the same time, utterly devastating. The line between Jason and Evelyn began to blur. The days I spent as Jason felt increasingly like the performance. I'd go to school, hang out with my friends, and feel like I was wearing a costume, the costume of a teenage boy. I'd catch my reflection in a window and be momentarily surprised to see a short-haired, lanky guy looking back at me. Evelyn was becoming my refuge. She was the one who was honest. She was the one who could feel things without being ashamed. One night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was a chaotic whirlwind of thoughts about school, my family, and Jane. I got out of bed and crept upstairs to the princess room, which was always left unlocked. The moonlight streamed through the gauzy curtains, illuminating the dresses and the vanity. On a whim, I opened one of the drawers. Inside was a pale pink, satin nightgown Ashley had insisted on buying for me. I'd never worn it. It felt too intimate, a step too far. But tonight, something was different. I stripped off my t-shirt and boxers and slipped the nightgown over my head. The satin was cool and incredibly smooth against my skin. It flowed over my body in a way that felt liquid and light. It was the most comfortable thing I had ever worn. I sat on the little stool in front of the unlit mirror, just a silhouette in the dark. The softness of the fabric was calming. It felt right in that moment. I wasn't Jason wearing a nightgown. I was just a person, feeling peaceful and comfortable in my own skin for the first time in a long time. The feeling was so profound, it almost made me want to cry. I started keeping a journal. I hid it under my mattress, a secret testament to my fracturing identity. My first entry, written late that night after trying on the nightgown, was raw and confused. Who am I when I'm Jason? I feel like I'm lying. I'm pretending to be this tough guy who doesn't care about anything. But it's exhausting. When I'm Evelyn, I feel real. Is that crazy, to feel more real in a costume? Today at the rink, Jane touched my arm, as Evelyn, and my heart jumped in a way it never has for Jason. I'm scared. I'm scared that if Mom ever stops this experiment, I'll lose the only part of myself that feels genuine. I'm afraid that if I have to go back to being Jason full-time, I'm going to lose myself. Ashley, oblivious to my internal crisis, was my biggest cheerleader. Can we have girl days every weekend, she pleaded with Mom. It's so much more fun having two sisters than two brothers. She loved having partners for her fashion shows and makeup experiments. She loved Evelyn and Chloe. My mum saw the positive changes. She saw me becoming more articulate, more thoughtful. She saw Harry becoming more confident and creative. She believed her experiment was working, that she was raising balanced sons. But I think even she was starting to worry. She'd watch me sometimes. As Evelyn, a flicker of concern in her eyes. She had set this train in motion. But I don't think she ever considered that I might not want to get off. She had intended to open a window for a day. But for me, she had opened a door, and I had walked right through it. And I wasn't sure I knew the way back. The breaking point came, as it was always going to, with my father. He'd been a volcano, rumbling for weeks. And one Sunday evening, he finally erupted. We had just finished a girl day. Harry was still humming and skipping around as Chloe, and I had just retreated to my room, still wearing Evelyn's comfortable leggings and a soft sweater, too tired and emotionally drained to change back into Jason's clothes just yet. I heard my dad's heavy footsteps on the stairs, and then his voice, booming from the hallway. "Olivia, we need to talk. Now." I crept to my door and opened it a crack. My mum was at the bottom of the stairs, looking up at him, her arms crossed. "What is it, Paul?" This he said, his voice shaking with a rage I hadn't seen in years. He gestured wildly, a sweeping motion that encompassed the whole house, the whole situation. "This has gone on long enough. This isn't a game anymore. Do you see what you're doing?" "I see our children exploring and learning," she said, her voice tight. "No," he shouted, and I flinched. "You're not teaching them empathy. You're causing confusion. Harry wants to be called Chloe at school. And Jason," he pointed up the stairs, directly at my door. "Jason is in his room, right now, dressed as a girl. And I don't think he even wants to change back. You're not conducting an experiment. Olivia, you're actively turning our sons into daughters." The accusation hung in the air, sharp and heavy. "That's a ridiculous, outdated thing to say," Mom shot back, her voice rising. "Gender is more than just the clothes you wear. Is it?" Look at him. He's happier as this Evelyn character, than he is as himself. What happens when this has to stop? When he goes off to college? What have you done to him? That's when the tears I'd been holding back for weeks finally came. A sob tore from my throat. Loud and raw. The argument downstairs stopped instantly. A second later, my door creaked open. My parents were both standing there, their angry faces softening into shock as they saw me. I was curled up on my bed, my face buried in my hands, my shoulders shaking. "Jason," my mom said, her voice a whisper. I looked up, my face a mess of tears and smudged eyeliner I'd forgotten to take off. The words just tumbled out. A confession born of weeks of confusion and fear. "I don't know if I want to," I cried, my voice cracking. "I don't know if I want to change back." The look on my father's face was one of complete and utter devastation. My mother looked like she'd been struck. The reality of her experiment, the unforeseen consequences, had just crashed down on all of us. This was no longer about empathy or social roles. This was about my identity, which had been put into a blender and was now a chaotic, unrecognizable mess. The family wasn't just cracked anymore, it was shattered. And I was the one holding the hammer. The great family schism didn't resolve itself overnight. The days that followed the big blow-up were filled with a heavy, oppressive silence. My parents spoke to each other in tense, clipped sentences. Girl days were suspended indefinitely. The princess room door remained closed. It felt like our house was holding its breath. Slowly, we started to talk, not with big, dramatic speeches, but in small, hesitant conversations. The first breakthrough came, unexpectedly, from Harry. One morning, he came downstairs wearing his regular jeans and a Spider-Man t-shirt. "I'm Harry today," he announced simply as he climbed into his chair for breakfast. My mom knelt down beside him. "Okay, sweetie. Does that mean you don't want to be Chloe anymore?" He took a big bite of his cereal, chewed thoughtfully, and then said, "No, I like being Chloe. But today I feel like being Harry. Maybe tomorrow I'll be Chloe again. It's okay to be both." Right. Out of the mouths of babes. It was so simple, so pure. For him, there was no conflict. He wasn't choosing one over the other. He was just being himself. Whichever version of himself he felt like, on any given day. My dad, who was listening from the kitchen doorway, actually managed a small, sad smile. My own path wasn't so clear. My confession had opened a Pandora's box, and I couldn't just stuff everything back inside. I felt torn in two, a civil war raging inside me. Jason was my past, my history, the person everyone knew. Evelyn was my present, my secret truth, the person I was starting to believe I truly was. One afternoon, I found myself back in the princess room. It was dusty now, a little sad. I sat down at the vanity and looked at my reflection. Jason looked back at me, his face pale and tired. I opened the makeup drawer. My hands moved on their own, a familiar, comforting routine. I didn't do a full face. Instead, I carefully made up only the right side of my face. I applied foundation, blending it perfectly. I shaped the eyebrow, added a subtle dusting of eyeshadow, a light flick of eyeliner, a coat of mascara, a hint of blush on the cheek, and a touch of color on half of my lips. When I was done, I stared at the result. It was a bizarre, symbolic portrait of my own internal struggle. On the left was Jason barefaced, boyish, familiar. On the right was Evelyn polished, feminine, aspirational. The two halves of my face, of my soul, stared back at me from the mirror. A perfect, jarring split. This was who I was now, not one or the other, but this strange, fractured creature in between. I didn't feel like Jason, and I wasn't fully Evelyn. I was just me, lost. I was still sitting there, staring at my two-faced reflection. When my phone buzzed on the vanity, I picked it up. It was a text message. From Jane. My heart constricted. My breath hitched. The message was simple. 6 words that felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds. Hey, wanna hang out tomorrow? Evelyn. I stared at the screen. At her name. At the name she had called me. Evelyn. Tomorrow. She was asking for the girl on the right side of my face. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I could say yes. I could dive headfirst into being Evelyn. Embrace her. Maybe even tell Jane the whole crazy truth someday. Or I could say no. I could retreat. Let Evelyn fade away. And try to piece Jason back together. Even if he felt like a stranger now. Who was I going to be tomorrow? The phone screen glowed in the dim room, illuminating my divided face. The cursor blinked, waiting for an answer. And for the first time, I realized the choice wasn't my mom's or my dad's to make. It was mine. I just had no idea what the right answer was.